It's Tuesday, the 4th of September 2007, and we're here in Carnaby Street for a very special event. This afternoon, the Small Faces and their manager, Donna Lambert, will be honoured with a green plaque. Behind me, they're getting ready to put the green plaque on the wall. It's a very quick process because 45 minutes or so ago there was no sign of any green plaque and I was quite concerned. Now apparently here where the Puma store is was the original site of Donna Lambert's office. Donna Lambert signed the Small Faces in 1965. Later, in 1967, he sold the Small Faces to Andrew Oldham, manager of the Rolling Stones, and Kenney Jones from the Small Faces is here today to see the unveiling. We'll be chatting with him later on. Delighted to meet the man. It's very exciting because obviously the Small Faces and Carnaby Street are inseparable. When the Small Faces launched in 1965, they were immediately associated with the look of Carnaby. John Stevens boutiques, the tailors here, Toppers, the shoe shop, they were all regular haunts of the Small Faces, and it was a revolution in menswear. Now, just to give you a quick history of Carnaby Street, now of course we have lots of beautiful flagship stores, as well as nooks and crannies and little alleyways and small independent boutiques all around the area. But when Carnaby Street was first opened, basically it was following a house being built here. Originally this area would have been just fields, and then in 1683 two gentlemen decided to build a mansion in this area, and it was called Carnaby House. That was Carnaby with a K. Apparently nobody knows why it came to be called Carnaby, but from there the area took the name, and a market was launched soon after, and the houses that were built here in Carnaby Street lent themselves to retail. A lot of people would have guest accommodation upstairs, and then downstairs in the ground floor there would be a shop. There was also a girls' charity school here at one point, and then during the war, when the East End got bombed, Carnaby Street very much took over as the hub of the rag trade. You had what were called sweatshop tailors all over the place around here, and they were creating suits for nearby Savile Row. Now from that ingrained and really busy tailoring industry, you had the fashion, and John Stevens was one of the icons of Carnaby who really took that over into retail. And of course the Small Faces were one of the first bands to demonstrate and to use that and really set the pace for menswear and fashion. The neighbourhood that was here when the Small Faces was set up here in 1965 was obviously quite different. We had a lot of tailors back then, didn't we?
Yeah, we had a lot of tailors in Kingly Street, so there are lots of tiny little rooms where the tailors, you know, just set up. But even now there are a few down there. You can go and buy some trousers from Merck, and you can still go round the corner and have them taken up immediately if you want to.
And that was the revolution of Carnaby, wasn't it?
Absolutely.
That you could get anything in any colour,
yep,
and adjusted in any way because the tailors were basically on site.
Absolutely. And Kenney Jones was telling me last night that he had an account in every single shop, and that's how he got paid in those days.
Fantastic. Now tell us a bit about Saturday, because today we're having the unveiling of the plaque, but then Saturday it's a massive day of celebration.
Yeah, it's all things Small Faces. It starts at midday to 4 o'clock. All the details are on carnaby.co.uk. We've got 3 bands playing live, and Eddie Pillar, the infamous mod DJ, he's coming down all day. So, and it's for the fans. Yeah. The convention's on the 9th, so come down.
We're here having a little chat with Val Weedon. Now, Val is instrumental in what's happening here today with this plaque. Val, can you tell us about how you first came to be working with the Small Faces?
Okay, well, I was always a fan of the Small Faces right from when they started their first single, What You Gonna Do About It. I was actually living in the north of England. My dad had moved up to Chesterfield with his job, and I was a big fan, and being a Londoner, you know, they were London bands, so I was really into them. And we moved back to London in 1966, beginning of 1966, and I left school. I was only 15. My dad found me this job in the city in a stockbroker's, and it was so boring. I hated it. So I'd skive off of work, never told my parents. Used to come over here to Carnaby Street to the fan club and hang out at the fan club with Pauline, who was the fan club secretary. And I did it so often that in the end they offered me a job. I didn't tell my parents, obviously, that I'd been skiving off. I just sort of said, I was off this great job, you know. And
what was the job title and what was the pay?
I was office junior, and I got £6 a week. And it was basically to help Pauline out. That they'd become so big that she needed help with the fan club, you know, opening all the letters. I mean, they used to, you know, bags and bags of letters.
What sort of things were fans writing to them? I mean, obviously it was an international fan base as well, wasn't it? Were they requesting signatures, pictures, photos?
Signatures, yeah, you know, offers of marriage, you know, usual thing. They used to send all sorts of presents as well. I met up with Pauline recently, and she reminded me that someone sent them a dog or something, you know. So some really weird things that they were sent as presents, and obviously the usual thing like cuddly toys and stuff like that. But my job really was to open all the letters, sort out all the membership fees, you know, do the cards and reply to people. And keep that going. And just generally, Dog's Body, I used to run around for Don Arden. I worked for Don Arden as well, who was their manager, and used to run backwards and forwards with contracts, go to the recording studio and pick up the recordings for them. So I got, you know, and get the coffee every morning. There's a coffee bar around the corner here, which is still here, that I used to get sent around the corner to get the coffee. And obviously the boys used to come in quite a lot, so that was really exciting.
So did you become friends with the boys in that time?
Not intimately, because they knew I was a big fan. I think I was sort of kept at arm's length. They knew I was in awe of them, and I'd make all sorts of excuses to try and bump into them in the corridor. And I remember one day they were in the office, and they'd come. It was Ronnie and Kenney had come down here to get a taxi, and at this time it wasn't. It was obviously traffic through here. So I made an excuse. I had to go on an errand, so I rushed down the stairs and was waiting outside with them. And so of course they offered me to get in the taxi with them. So I had this taxi drive with them, and I was so excited. I was sort of sitting opposite, but they were taking the mickey out of me. They really were. Ronnie was a real leg puller. So, but it was great. You know, we did get to see them, and I got to see Jimmy Winston, who was obviously one of the original members. I got to meet as well because Don ended up managing him, so he used to come up the office quite a lot, and I became friends with Jimmy as well.
The common thread is the mod fashion, which will never leave Carnaby Street, and I was deeply touched, and also deeply touched today that after all these years, the small faces have been honoured in this way by having a green plaque. Thank God it's green, because if someone told me it was blue, I wouldn't be here. So I wonder if when we're not here, if it does automatically go blue.
We'd all be blue.
We'd all be blue, yeah. I have to say that Val Weedon has done a terrific job in campaigning for this plaque, and I'm deeply appreciative of it, and also to the City of Westminster for allowing it to go up, and for the owners of this building, which I think is Shaftesbury, and for everybody that took place in making this come true. But I would like to say that the only sad thing about today is that Ronnie Lane and Steve Marriott would have loved to have been here today, along with the late great Donna Lambert. They're probably up in heaven launching a new Carnaby Street, probably. But no, that's my only sad feeling about it. But I'm deeply touched on behalf of the small faces. Thanks.
Three, two, one.
Yeah.